Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. I'm Will Schick, Director of Product Development for Atomic Mass Games, and today we're going to be painting the Juggernaut, who just released a few weeks ago, but figured might as well throw some more colors on our Juggernaut here. I think I'm probably going to go classic, but I'm willing to take suggestions from the chat. So if there's a color that you want to see used on this guy, let's do it. I already painted one from an Extravaganza, but that was a long time ago, so I thought it would be good to just revisit the Juggernaut, especially because I see a lot of people out there have been playing the Unstoppable Colossus event kit, which is a new, fully cooperative, organized play kit. I'm like mixing up all my words. I'm doing really well. I wanted to say Ultimate Encounter, but then I said organized play kit. It's all the same thing that we can go. So let's go ahead and jump in and start working on our Juggernaut. And I'm going to be mixing most of my colors using Chimera today, so we're just going to start with getting out some colors. We got a Dallas in there. It's very exciting. Do a little bit of red. Do a little red oxide. Get some blacks. I should have prepped all this stuff before. Slide him up. All right, so hopefully everyone's doing well. Had a wonderful weekend. Is having a pretty good start to their week. Oh, yeah, it's International Women's Day. Summer. Happy International Women's Day. I know. You can thank the chat. They reminded me. What other colors do I want here? Probably a little white. Oh, I'm just going to throw my white on the ground. No! All right. I'm surprised you're not using your mixing cam while I put out all my paints, because I didn't do that beforehand. Because I'm not very smart. Get a little magenta. Little magenta. Yellow for him, like the movie? Oh, you don't have to. It's not set up. Oh, yeah, push it. Get it where you want. I'm just going to get this little piece of smuts out of there. Oh. Are you watching it live, too? You could have just told me what to do.
Get it in there.
All right. I'm going to take a little bit of this red, take a little bit of this red oxide, mix up a little bit more, maybe a little black. It's too much black, it's fine. I am just going to make a mess. That's literally my plan today. Oh, yeah, that's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good. Let's grab a little bit more. We need a lot for this guy, though. So yeah, mostly it's red oxide, bit of black, a little bit of this nice punchy red just to kind of push it towards that color. Maybe a little bit more black in there. There we go. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Let's get a little bit more water on there. Let's see. I don't think we're still not back to playing any game streams yet on Thursdays. We will probably be returning to that sometime in April or May. So we're still being a little cautious and just taking our time, kind of getting the lay of the land and everything as to what's going on, what's wrong. So there won't be a game stream this week. Ooh, I just totally went on his arm. Not really a huge deal because we'll just tease that out. But we should be back to it hopefully sometime in April or May again. Like that? You just tell me what to do and I'll do it. We'll make it work. How about that? Is that okay?
I like that.
Okay, great.
Every day should be International Women's Day.
Yeah, why not? So, what is my favorite Marvel character that hasn't been added to Marvel Crisis Protocol yet? Ooh, that's tough. There's so many good ones. We've added so many folks. I think it would be really cool to get some of the Marvel monster characters in. like Werewolf by Night, The Living Mummy. Josh is screaming right now about Bessie the Hell Cow. That's not necessarily one of my picks, but definitely in the same vein. So I think getting Frankenstein's monster, the real Howling Commandos, they've gone by in some of the comic runs. I think those characters are pretty cool. Obviously, they'd make some fantastic miniatures, a lot of character, a lot of flavor. So I'd be all in for that stuff. Absolutely. All right. Man-Thing is also part of that group. Oh, there's... So any kind of I think I saw something about high contrasty painting. Any kind of high contrast painting or paints, they're basically just utilizing the principle of like a wash. Similar to what I'm doing here, actually. I've taken my mixed paint and I'm stretching it over my Zenith Prime. And what that does is it allows the paint to tint all of the areas and then kind of like pool into the darker areas. So you get a nice natural highlight of dark and light. And it's done in a minimum of coats because you're utilizing the primer layer. So like here at the pec where I had more white sprayed for my Zenith Prime, it's going to be lighter than up here around the collar where I had more of my darker primer showing through. So the contrast way of painting, you can do high contrast paints with like specialty paints that have become more and more popular. And they're kind of nice because they're convenient right out of the pot. But you can also pretty much make your own high contrast kind of like mixes of not quite a wash, not quite a normal paint, just by using flow extender and a little bit of water. So if you get like Glaze Medium, which you can pick up, you can get it from Vallejo and then a bunch of different art supply companies and stuff. They all have like different glazes and mediums. The medium is just the extender that the paint uses. It's the liquid that the pigment is distilled in. So your paints aren't mixed with water, they're mixed with the medium. And so by adding more medium, and there's a bunch of different types of medium that you can buy from art stores and stuff, you can change kind of the nature of the paint and how it adheres to the model and flows and all of that stuff. Glaze medium is one of my favorite things to use. I do use it quite a bit when I'm working on stuff. But with glaze mediums, you can make any paint basically a high contrast kind of paint. Why no traffic light? Well, for one, we only get an hour, and I already know I'm not going to finish this guy in an hour. So I didn't want to add yet another element that I knew I wasn't going to finish. And two, I'm not team traffic light. And maybe that, is controversial, but I like my Juggernaut sans traffic light. That's just my personal opinion. So I don't typically add the traffic light because it just, for me, it's cool, but it's another element to paint. And I just, I feel like he's just as cool without it. So I'm okay just kind of leaving it off. That's why. Dallas, on the other hand, he puts that traffic light on all the time. So you kind of get all the different approaches. And that's part of what makes it really fun when we're concepting and designing characters is, it's always nice to be able to find options and opportunity to do some customization, some personal choice. Like, do I want him to have a traffic light that he's ripped up from the ground and is going to beat some fool with, or do I not? A lot of that is, as Dallas talks about on his streams, really based off of engineering and production. And, does it make sense? You have to look at the anatomy of the miniature as well to determine, if, does it work with the pose? Does it make sense with the way the body's twisted and the torso and all that stuff? Or are you going to have to get crazy? If you've put together the Deadpool mini, then you know that he comes with a lot of extra parts just to make two very different looking miniatures, because once you kind of change the intention and the action of his pose, it's not just changing an arm or a leg, it's literally changing the way the torso is turned, the way the tension in the chest is and all that stuff. So these are the big considerations that we always have to look at when we're like, okay, well, how much does it take to make this option, and then is it worth it? In Deadpool's case, because he's a character that has a very different, if you read Deadpool when he was originally introduced, very different character from the modern Deadpool. And obviously different creative teams always take characters in different ways, but especially for him, it just felt like, everybody has their vision of who Deadpool is as a character, and it kind of depends on when you discovered the character, and then even if you've been with the character for a long time, everybody kind of has their own favorite version of Deadpool. And so we really wanted to kind of give an homage to that in the set and make sure that people had the opportunity to either go goofy Deadpool, serious Deadpool, somewhere in between Deadpool, But to do that, it took a lot of additional work and parts to make that miniature cohesive and to make the poses really read and all of that stuff. So with like Juggernaut here, adding something that he's gripping in his back fist, it doesn't really change a ton when it comes to the pose, and it doesn't change the reading of the action and the motion, so it works out really well. Kind of similar to doing the head swap on Wolverine or things like that. There are things that are really easy to do from a technical and engineering standpoint that can have a big impact on the miniature. There are some things that would be easy to do, but maybe just not worth it in our estimation because a hobbyist who wants to do it could do it, or maybe it's just not the right interpretation of the character that we want to do, or something we want to save for a later iteration, things like that. There's a huge amount of time and consideration and effort spent on evaluating all of that stuff internally and making sure that we're very happy and satisfied with what we're turning over and getting to you all to be able to paint and stuff. So yeah, pocket squirrels. I know all about the pocket squirrels. They always had such cute names like Pinky the Pocket Squirrel, and yeah, just keep the pocket squirrels. I don't think Dallas is a pocket squirrel guy. He's a pocket raccoon guy. We'll get him some pocket raccoons. He'd have to have some big pockets. Maybe it'd be like a Biv overall pocket, kind of like marsupial. We've played around a little bit with clear plastics. Wasp's wings from the Ant-Man and Wasp set is probably the most, the one that is most notable. We've looked at it for a lot of other characters and stuff. There's a lot of considerations that go into that type of stuff. Clear plastic has different working considerations from like the hobbyist end. You have to make sure whatever part you're using on, you have to think about how it glues, like will it fog up? How do people paint around it, or can they? With Wasp's wings, it was really easy because you could very easily leave those off to paint in by themselves and then paint the rest of her separately. And it didn't really affect the overall experience of hobbying, whereas, if, for example, you wanted to give Juggernaut here a big old clear chest, I don't know why you'd want to do that. You then have to think, okay, well, how am I going to paint the parts that are supposed to be clear versus not clear, and what does that mean, and what kind of training and explanation do we maybe have to do so players and hobbyists who've never approached something like that before know what to do, and even experienced hobbyists, you want to make sure that it's not a chore to have to deal with. And so a lot of the times, it comes down to, well, is that juice worth the squeeze? It is a very fun material to work in, and it does do some interesting stuff. And, maybe there's limited edition stuff in the future where it makes sense for. I have no doubt that there will be characters in the future that will probably benefit from that kind of stuff as well. So we'll just have to see. All right, I'm going to move over and start mixing up some red because we're going with the 90s cartoon X-Men Juggernaut, which means that he's kind of maroony on the top, and then he's got really garish boots and a really bright red midsection. So I'm just going to play around here on my wet palette. I think that's kind of in the right zone here. I like that. That was quite the sigh, Summer. What's wrong?
I was pushing back my chair.
Oh,
It wasn't even a sigh, sir.
it sounded like a really big sigh. Yeah, there's a ton of everyone's now like listing all the characters that I didn't mention. There's so many good characters in Marvel. I think that's one of the things. And whether villains, heroes, I would love to see, you know, maybe some Blue Marvel in my life. Some Adam Bashir, I think would be really awesome. Very fun character, super great. You've got, you know, Sasquatch and all kinds of like just fantastic opportunities, and that's one of the fun things about working in and as part of the Marvel universe and getting to make this game is, you know, we get to think about and hopefully someday explore all those different characters. And then we get to have little internal death matches, you know, when we're discussing like where we're going next, who should we cover, what makes sense from a game standpoint, what affiliations might we want to introduce, kind of like the Midnight Suns thing. What affiliations can we expand on? Which characters do we think are really timely and important? So there's a lot of debate that often rages about the future. And as we discuss a lot, it's funny because, you know, when we're on these things or we're doing a mini extravaganza or whatever, we talk about the future, and the future's like 1 year away from now. And that sounds so crazy far and everything, but in reality, we're, you know, at least 2 years ahead in most things. And then when we're making decisions about, well, which character is going to come next, those things can be 2 to 3 years out or further. Just based on timelines and production schedules and all that stuff. So you live your life really, really far into the future in some ways. So it's kind of neat because you do know what is coming. I need to check what his belt looks like. Going to the reference. Okay. Seems fine. His belt is basically the same color, so we'll just do that. Deathlock. Oh, well, there's some love. I mean, you know, you got him. I think there's plenty of people out there who would probably love an Elsa Bloodstone as well. I mean, good Lord, there's just, it's hard to just narrow it down to like a couple of characters. I remember, you know, I always remember Deathlock from his appearance, his guest starring role in Maximum Carnage, which also had a Michael Morbius, which I saw mentioned on the stream. Yeah, Richard Rider, Sam Alexander, both Novas. Tons of stuff. No, I can't bring out everything right now. I mean, even if we could, it probably wouldn't be the, you know, the Christmas we all want, because then it would all be out. What would we have to look forward to? Anticipation is part of the most enjoyable thing, you know, about life. If you got everything all at once, if you just started with everything, it would be a very interesting journey. Journeys are cool because they unfold. Things happen, you know? So, yeah, we got to wait a little bit, but hey, waiting a little bit isn't the worst. Just means we get excited about what's next. We get to talk about what's next, speculate about what's next. As is the way of humans, be a little disappointed that what we thought was going to happen didn't actually happen. But then in a little bit come around to what we did get and realize that's pretty cool too. And now we can just hope that what we wanted that didn't happen will become something. Look at this, all going around here. Oh, Throg? Now the question on Throg, or Frog Thrower, is do you want Puddlegup or do you want, Thor Odinson as Throg? Because both have their merits. Dallas actually recently went to a comic book store here in Seattle and got the first appearance of both Odinson Frog, Thor, and who now holds the mantle of Throg, one Puddlegup. So you got some options. You could technically have two Throgs on the table, given that their aliases are different. Any frog, Thor. All right, well, there you go. Any Throg will do, as they say. I thought having a little Puddlegup Throg was pretty fun in the recent Asgard. Well, it wasn't recent. It's pretty old now, but more recent, the Asgardians of the Galaxy run with Angela and the Executioner and Kid Loki and stuff. I liked the fact that he got tapped for Asgardians of the Galaxy. Little frog Thor going out and kicking ass. It was great. Okay, I'm gonna switch back to my normal color or my base color here, which I need to mix up a little bit more of. That's okay. Because I need to do the helmet. I'm not going to do a metallic effect on the helmet, I don't think. I'm just going to do it like a comic book. So, whereas normally I would go for probably a little bit of metal in there or do some kind of glazing over the metal. We're just going to do flat colors today. It's fine. It'll be a little richer than the rest, and I think that'll work out pretty well. Just kind of glaze this down. So it's a little thick, so I'm just going to grab a damp brush, and I'm just going to kind of wick away some of the paint while it's still workable. We'll kind of decide what that means for everything else. So you can definitely erase when you're painting like I'm doing now, and you can kind of like make a mess of it, but then you can always go back and add more paint. So if you do wind up going a little thicker, it's a little darker because my paint's dried out a little bit. It didn't quite have the amount of moisture in it that I wanted. You have time to play kind of Bob Ross style a little bit. When you work with oils, it's a lot of subtractive coloring. And you can do that because of the working time of oils, and that Bob Ross kind of style of painting relied on a lot of liquid clear to blend your colors right on the canvas, that kind of stuff. If you got a little bit of bravery to you, you can always do the same thing here when you start to make little mistakes. And go in. Yeah, I think one of the really cool things, Ultron with Ultron bots and grunts, like we talked about, originally, there are definitely those characters out there in the Marvel Universe who one of their superpowers is personnel management of one way or another. And so it's pretty cool that we now have a way to kind of represent that and maybe focus on that aspect of a character. Because Ultron definitely is a no-nonsense kind of like do-it-himself murder bot, but he also really likes having all of his little drones around. So we kind of have the solo do-it-yourself murder bot from the core set. Maybe someday we get Ultron, the murder bot manager, And I think plenty of other characters kind of fit into that as well. So there's a lot of really cool open playground stuff that we get to do now. That we have that going on, and we have that system in place. I'm looking forward for everyone to get their hands on Fury and Shadowland Daredevil and Elektra, and of course the Hand Ninjas and Shield Agents, and start having some fun messing around with those. grunts and seeing how they affect game decisions and kind of change the analysis on games and stuff like that. Maybe a little more black here. There we go. Come in and start working these colors out. Red Ghost with Super Ape Grunts. My goodness, there's a cut right there. Any more reveals this month? I don't know. You'd have to plead with BK and Summer. I don't think so though. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be next month that you'll start seeing some more of the stuff, and a lot of it is based off of global shipping and logistics and all of that. We learned our lesson a little bit last year. We're keeping as close of an eye as possible on developments and situations and stuff to make sure that we're not announcing something that may not suddenly appear for 4 months after when we thought it was going to release. And I have no doubt that will happen. You can't control the weather, but just trying to make sure that there's a little bit more, a little bit less waiting time for everyone, just in case. All right, so pretty happy with where this is shaking out. Now we'll just start going back through and adding some shading and some washing and stuff and crank up these colors. Pretty good. You don't want to be using any kind of cadmium colors. That would murder Dallas. He licks his brush too much. He'd get that heavy metal poisoning. You don't want to mess around with some of those colors. They look amazing, but man, they're scary. Scary. I know Dallas. He couldn't keep that brush out of his mouth if he wanted to. It's too ingrained in him. Too ingrained. All right, what do we got going on here? Nothing much. We'll just keep going. So I think now we just got to figure out what our shadows are going to be here. Maybe we'll get this going on. So I think I'm going to grab some blue. It's pretty good. Okay. I'm going to darken up that belt just a bit more. It's kind of bothering me. I don't like the fact that it's all the same color, so I'm going to just take that value and really kind of knock it down a little bit, maybe. Let's see where we get. It's in shadow anyway, so going a little darker is okay. I'm going to hit that through and that. I'm not looking at the chat, so if anything's come up, Summer, let me know. I'm busy working on this belt. It's just a subtle difference, but I think that will help kind of divide the two a bit better here. It's not quite like the cartoon. We're being a little too fancy. Plastic token set. Yeah, who knows? I mean, that could be a possibility. There's certainly nothing planned right now. There's a lot of tokens in the game, as folks know. But, really, as long as you're using the 1-inch tokens, the appropriate size tokens for your objectives, and you and your opponent are super clear on what every token means, You can kind of swap things out. I like swapping out my objective tokens for ones that I think make sense. But like we've talked about before, I very often alter kind of the storyline of my crises to fit whatever's on the table. So sometimes if I'm playing my X-Man, I will, reimagine something as a bit more mutant focused, or maybe if we've got two evil teams going up against each other, I kind of imagine that there's a turf war going on. So I do, and then I will shift. Maybe I'll use some spider-infected tokens for something when, like a crisis, like maybe the cube crisis becomes spider-infected token or something, because we're imagining that we're fighting the spider people or collecting them or something. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. The point remains that, I'll pick whatever I feel like is going to make the game feel the most narrative and thematic and fun as it can be while still being the same game. And as long as my opponent knows what's going on and we're always clear about it, it's great. Sometimes you reach into that token box to grab something and you wind up not finding your slow token, and you're just like, well, whatever. This X-Man token, Uncanny X-Force token, is now going to be my slow token for right now. It's going to mark it. That's totally cool. As long as you and your opponent know what's going on. And like I said, using properly sized stuff when it matters on the table, it's all good. Don't get too hung up about what's what, especially when you're playing with people you know. Tournaments and stuff, maybe. Make sure you have the right things handy as much as possible, because then everyone's on the same page and there's no chance that anyone's going to get mixed up or whatever. All right. So I'm just going through with my brown that I did for the belt, and I'm kind of just darkening up some shadows and some shades and having fun. Oh, I love dice trays. I don't know. I mean, dice trays aren't really kind of our thing, but who knows? If Courtney's around in the chat hanging out like she was last week, I'm sure she's taking notes on all of these player desires and wants. So maybe we can do some super sweet prize support or something that kind of covers that. But I don't know that dice trays specifically are something that we as AMG would wind up doing. Who knows, though? It's kind of a far game accessory that, a lot of the times the question comes down to, well, do you want to have your engineers work on a dice tray, or do you want to have them work on the next Marvel character? It's like, well, probably the next Marvel character. All right. So all I'm doing here is I'm just two brush blending in some shadows and shades with that color. And I go back to this helmet really quick. Just get in there. I need to put out some more paint. That's okay. Boop. I don't have to touch that up anyway, because once I go in there with the flesh, I'm totally going to mess it up anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Just kind of blend that out, feather it out a little bit. Let stuff work. Okay. Oh no, I missed his little punchy claw. Now I'm going to have to make more of my color. We can do it. Missed this little brass knuckle he's got here. Yeah, I mean, all of the games, right? Everything that we do, it's the same all the time. It's like, well, you can work on what's coming next for the games themselves, or you can kind of work on accessories or things like that. And, you know, everybody knows, as cool as some stuff would be, we all know what we're here for. We're here for the cool units and characters and train the miniatures. That's where we focus the vast majority of our efforts. All right, so I'm going to grab some blue now. Hopefully some blue ink, maybe. Ooh, I guess that'll work. What's this one? There we go. Just going to grab some Inktense blue. I'm going to switch over to a well because you don't want to do inks on a wet palette. That's just messy. And we're going to, I don't have any medium, so we'll just use some water. It'll be fine. What? Not for this, because if you use inks on a wet palette, it just causes a mess. So, because I'm doing just an ink wash here, which I'm going to use to shade down my reds, I got to use the well palette. But there's nothing really exciting about it. I just squeezed a little bit of blue ink into my well, and then because I don't have any medium here right now, I just used a bunch of water. Which, the one thing about, you know, thinning your inks with water, just like your paints, it can be tricky to go really, really thin with them. So, like, ideally, I would want to mix some Glaze Medium in with this because it would create a better adhesion. And it would cause the paint to flow better and stuff. I'm probably totally off camera here. But that's okay. We can make this work. But yeah, always having, again, one of the best tools that you can pick up outside of paints and brushes is some good artist medium. So Vallejo Glaze Medium is really fantastic. You can get matte medium from a lot of different places. Flow Aid can be a really big one if you're doing a lot of washing and high contrast paints, like Flow Aid. Makes your paints run into cracks and crevices really well, so it's really good for developing your own washes. Playing around with all the different options and types can be really interesting and fun and rewarding. And allow you to create kind of your own specialty paints that have properties that you can't find anywhere else, and allow you to do the techniques that you like, and you can always adjust and mess with them, which is really cool. Like here, going back, I probably would have added a little bit of like crimson into that blue because it's pretty strong. When it comes down to like which characters get alt heads, a lot of times it just depends on the character themselves and how iconic is that character, you know, with a helmet, without a helmet, that kind of stuff. Because like you could make the argument that everyone who wears a head or a helmet wears a head. Gross. Anyone who wears a helmet could have like a non-helmeted version, you know. Captain America takes his helmet off all the time and, you know, remains in costume. But one of the things that we talk about always is how iconic is that to that character, and does that fit this specific character? So, you know, for me, it's like a question of, okay, well, we know that Steve Rogers takes his helmet off a lot, but he doesn't usually do it in battle, especially in the comics. You know, he's almost always helmeted when he's fighting folks, and he only takes it off when he's like at rest, or he's doing the debrief at S.H.I.E.L.D. or Avengers HQ or whatever. And then on top of that, you know, I feel like in my experience with Marvel Comics, like once Steve is fighting without the helmet on, he's kind of in that director of S.H.I.E.L.D. mode. You know, he oftentimes Steves that I always think of who go and do their hero thing without the helmet, he's almost always given up the mantle of Captain America to someone else. Like either Bucky took it or, Falcon took it, Sam took it, and he's now doing a different job. And so I think that's, another kind of like part of the equation in question is, are you stepping on the toes or like mixing the vibes of these different characters at their different points? But then you have characters like Wolverine, and Wolverine is about as ubiquitous without the cowl on as he is with the cowl on. And so that's kind of like the really big thing, right? Or is he Nomad? Yeah, like there's so many different kind of questions and considerations to take into that. So that's often, why we went one way or the other. Sometimes it's just based on internal bandwidth and engineering and things like that too, If everything's stacking up, sometimes you don't have as much time to do exploration and to dive into stuff, and sometimes you do. So there's a multitude of factors that really go into it, but a lot of it is largely based off of, does it feel right for the character? Is it something that, you expect to see a lot of, or is really natural for the character to do? That kind of stuff. Because like with Luke Cage, right, Power Man, we could have done an alternate head with the tiara, and done the classic Power Man look, and then you kind of choose the more modern Luke Cage, or you could do the classic Power Man look. But I feel like classic Power Man, if you're going to do that, like make classic Power Man. That's a different iteration of the character with different rules and a different role and all of that kind of stuff that goes into it. So. Balance considerations always are something that we look at when it comes to affiliations and which characters go in it, as well as, the comics and the stories that originate from them, for sure. Let's see. Where do we want to go next? I think maybe we'll get a little crazy. Why not? Let's try to mix some flesh tones today. This will go well, I'm sure. Haven't practiced it. Know the theories. Let's just play. We got time. We got nowhere to be for another 12 minutes. This guy's looking pretty good. All right, so we're going to take some white. A little bit of this yellow oxide. Some more white because we're going to need a lot of this. A little bit of this yellow. A touch of red. Let's see where that gets us. Oh yeah, that's too bad. Ooh, that's taking us off the range of where we want to go. That's okay. Grab a little bit of this magenta. Oh, there's our pink. Now we're getting close. This is the exciting part because I'm just in the tank, like mixing colors and messing around here. A little bit more white. More of this oxide. He's a bronze man. He spends a lot of time in the sun. There we go. Now we're getting there. Oh, what are you standing up for, Summer? What's happening? You make me nervous. You move around so much. Let's see how that looks. Oh, that's pretty close. You have a screen in front of you. Look, you do you. I'm just saying, there's a screen there. I know, International Women's Day. Not a hard time. I'm just asking questions. Gosh.
Bring your little man down.
How about there?
There you go.
See, look how well I listen. Tell me to do something, I immediately do it. No questions asked. Just make it happen. Oh, am I more excited for? I mean, both should be pretty fun movies, I think. Obviously, I feel like Doctor Strange is going to be one wild ride, so I am pretty interested in seeing what happens in that. But I think both will be really cool. I will see both opening weekend, zero question. Maybe that answers it. I'll be there. Probably with all of my AMG cronies as well. We very much like to go to the premieres of those, of any movie that relates to the stuff we get to work on for games. So, Marvel or otherwise, we're like all in. This brush is just spreading its arms wide to the sun. Ridiculous. Nerf darts. Oh my gosh. Now apparently chat's okay with you shooting me with Nerf guns.
I actually really like this idea, and I'm going to take this up some upper management.
I don't really feel like you need to. I feel like I already know the answer to that one. Given that upper management is Simone. I will warn you though.
She's going to tell me to use a dart gun.
Oh, rude. I'll warn you though, when that Nerf bullet goes flying and smashes into the paint and calamity happens, it's going to be on you. Paint's everywhere. Women and children are screaming. The horror.
I'll just cut the stream.
Yeah, just make sure you got the little AMG logo on the transmissions coming. Please stand by. I want the sound too, though. You and Tony will have to work on getting the sound out. The brrrr, little national emergency noise. Do. I definitely did not mix enough of this color. That's okay. Pagani is a bit of a slob when it comes to his painting. He's kind of like the Jackson Pollock of miniatures, paint, cleanliness. It's just everywhere. He gets it done, though. That boy is prolific in his getting things painted and ready to go. It's impressive. I often find myself just being like, I can't believe you got that done so fast. I'll give him a new character or whatever that day, and then by 9 p.m. that night, he's like, look, I'm done. Just like, holy cow, dude. Use quick. We're going to have to mix more of this color. That's okay. We got to figure it out. Let's go back to the action. Oh, it's so pink. Tone it down, more yellows, more yellow, more white. Yellow, white, magenta, that's how we're doing it today. More yellow. Maybe a little too much yellow. It's okay. How's that look? Ooh, there we go. Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. got a long way to go on this fella. Oh, we only have 5 minutes. As far as like, I mean, Marvel Crisis Protocol deals in the Marvel universe, so crossover events, while they're fun and always kind of like a big to-do, they don't really fall into our purview in any way. Like Crisis Protocol is definitely just the Marvel universe. So I wouldn't hold my breath for any kind of like crazy crossover action. Plus, I mean, Lord, we can't even get everybody's characters that they want in the chat right now out right away, so then trying to do a crossover on top of all that, it's too much. Dallas demands sleep. Summer and Mice teenagers, though, they probably would be okay if they just didn't see us for a while. If we were just like, here's $20 for a pizza. I'll see you in a week. They'd be like, finally. Gosh, I thought he'd never leave. I love you too, son. Someday. Someday when you're not just a walking Molotov cocktail of hormones. We'll be back to it. Until then, I will just embarrass you at every possible opportunity with my loves. Punch up this first base coat of flesh that we mixed up ourselves. Oh, it's our own personal skin tone, just like everybody in the world. We all have unique skin tones. Oh, Atomic Mass staff as civilian tokens. That would be pretty legit. Although I don't know if I trust everybody out there to like utilize our civilian tokens with the proper care. I feel like a lot of the times we'd be like, yeah, Thanos, get him. Get him. But I did talk a little bit about the Unstoppable Colossus Organized Play Kit at the start. If you haven't seen it yet, go talk to your local game store about picking up one of them. It's super awesome. You can, as many people have discovered online, use the Juggernaut instead of Colossus if you want to. His bigger base does make the Ultimate Encounter a bit more challenging. But it is a fully co-op Ultimate Encounter, so it is the second fully co-op UE that we've made since Ultron. One, William Pagani worked his heart and soul into it. It's fantastic. We've actually used it to teach a couple of folks from Asmodee the basics of Marvel Crisis Protocol, so it's fantastic for that as well. But yeah, you can grab it. You can go play in an event, talk to your stores. If they haven't picked up one of the kits yet, they definitely can. It is super fun. Effectively, the Crisis teams have to stop a rampaging Unstoppable Colossus and use some tech and stuff to do that. He runs into everything and destroys it all. And you kind of have to stop him from destroying the city. So it's a bit of a race against time, and it is very fun. And, of course, really great because if you're hanging out with folks who maybe aren't in the mood for the 1v1 experience, or even the 2v1 experience of other Ultimate Encounters, you can just pull this one out, and two of you can go to town playing it. I'm not even going to bother with those eyes because we're done. There's only 1 minute left. Will there be any new releases aside from minis? I believe, yeah. There's still a couple surprises in store before Mini Stravaganza. But there we go. This is where we got to on our Juggernaut in an hour. It's looking pretty good. I would basically say with a little bit of cleanup, this guy is tabletop ready for sure. Obviously, I have to finish the base. But not too bad. Had a lot of fun mixing up those skin tones, and basically every color on this fella, outside of the blue ink wash, is mixed from our Chimera colors. So you have a lot of fun with just making up all of your own color schemes and getting crazy and kind of experimenting with stuff. So with that, thank you so much for joining me today. You can join us again tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific, as Dallas Kemp is going to be painting up some Star Wars action. I don't entirely know what he's painting yet, but it is going to be Star Wars related. And of course, you can tune back in next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. We'll be back with more hobbying, hanging out, all that good stuff. We just love spending time with you. Until I see you next time, be good to each other, have fun, play some games, and we will see you on the next one. Goodbye. Woo, Summer. Woo! Woo! You took off the big headphones, though. There was something about the big headphones and the mask that really, it made you look super. Yeah, you looked like a boss. Yeah, I was.